Welcome back to Rising. Lindsey, you're up. What's in your lens today?
Let's get into it. So Democrats have been getting hammered with the same question for months. Where's your plan? Well, now they're putting it on paper. And it's really not some abstract academic wish list. It's 3 very specific demands tied to Homeland Security funding, coming as the clock ticks towards a shutdown deadline after federal agents shot and killed Alex Preddy in Minneapolis last weekend. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says his caucus is united around 3 main objectives. And when you listen to what they are, the bigger point is simple. Immigration enforcement can exist, but it can't operate like a system with no rules, no transparency, and no accountability.
First, we want to end roving patrols. We need to tighten the rules governing the use of warrants and require ICE's coordination with state and local law enforcement. Second, we want to enforce accountability. There needs to be a uniform code of conduct and accountability. Federal agents should be held to the same use of force policies that apply to state and local law enforcement and be held accountable when they violate these rules, including we need independent investigations to help enforce accountability.
I think that's common sense because roving patrols without clear rules don't just create fear. They create mistakes, as we've seen in Minneapolis. They create confrontations, and they create the kind of murky, confusing encounters where nobody knows who's in charge, what authority is being used, or what rights people actually have in certain moments. And that's where the second point matters, a universal code of conduct and independent investigations. If local police departments can be required to follow use of force policies, federal agents shouldn't get a special carve-out. Accountability isn't anti-law enforcement. It's what makes law enforcement legitimate. Then there's the third demand, and honestly, this one shouldn't even be controversial.
We want masks off, body cameras on. Federal agents must be prohibited from wearing masks. They must be required to use body cameras, and they also always have to carry proper identification.
Masks off, body cameras on, proper identification. That's really not about politics. It's about basic transparency. Body cameras have been used across the country because they protect the public and they protect officers when accusations fly. And if someone is exercising government power, stopping you, detaining you, entering your home, you should be able to see their face and know who they are. And the public is clearly uneasy with how far things are going right now. A Reuters Ipsos poll just came out, found that some 58% of respondents said ICE agents have gone, quote, too far in their crackdown. It's not a fringe opinion, that's the majority. So when people say Democrats don't have a plan, here it is. Guardrails, accountability, and transparency. Because enforcing immigration law should never mean abandoning the standards that make this country a democracy in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, I, for the most part, agree with those policies. I saw Rand Paul say similar things on TV yesterday, say that, like, look, what happens with local law enforcement, if there's an officer-involved shooting, even if it is ruled perfectly justified, you know, usually they have a period where they're on desk duty and there's an investigation. Right. And that can be obnoxious for them, but it's just kind of the standard operating procedures. So national law enforcement it shouldn't be any different. And yeah, I totally agree with him. He said there should be an investigation.
So if we get to Friday and the government shuts down and the Democrats have laid out specific things they'd like, if we are not in agreement about that, we know it's because the other side of the aisle said we're not going for this.
Well, some of those things aren't even controversial. Don't we all agree that we want body cameras? I don't think anyone is saying I want less video footage of these encounters. I don't think anyone thinks that. Now we're arguing about what the video footage shows, but we're glad we have it.
And if we had body camera,
everybody's glad they have it.
Right. If we had body camera every single time, then this would really
Some of these aren't body. Right. With the video,
some of them aren't body cameras.
Some of it is from spectators.
We'd know almost like we have matched that with the spectators, and they would have even more of a firm case about any argument.
Always have body camera footage
And I think
all for that.
the impartial, independent investigations, they should include both federal and local law enforcement. I mean, I don't think that's a crazy thing. People say they can't believe the federal government right now. People say that Fry and Waltz are adding to the chaos and they can't listen to them right now. Okay,
Well, they are.
so then let an independent entity jump in, and then both people can be involved, and they independently can tell us what happened. I think that that's a fair thing. And also the masks off. Like, why are we hiding ICE agents in the way that we're not hiding police officers? Like, you can do your job and take your mask off. I mean, in no place.
Well, the reason for that, from the conservative perspective, is that local police doing their jobs is not particularly controversial. The work ICE is doing is controversial, and that if their identities were known, they would be doxxed, harassed. They would be, screaming liberals, some of whom I guess are being trained to actually have clashes with law enforcement. Alex Preddy, now we know, did kick out the taillight of a police vehicle.
It doesn't give ICE the right to kill him.
People, not saying it does, absolutely does not, but you'd have people like that showing up at ICE officers' homes and maybe, smashing their mailboxes with baseball bats or, throwing bricks through their windows or something like that. That's what you'd have if they were not masked. That's the argument. I'm not saying I agree with it, but that's the argument.
I accept the argument. I just think we need to hear very vocally, not just Rand Paul, who always, tries to play the middle or be neutral. We need to hear more Republicans.
Well, he wouldn't say it's playing the middle. He would say it's applying his limited government view
doing what government is
evenly.
asked to do, right?
Yeah.
Negotiate across the aisle. We need to hear more Republicans come to the table and say, well, if it's not these three things, what are your three things? I don't want silence and then another shutdown and then a blame game. Like we see what's happening with the president and Fry, who can't get it together. When Holman and Walsh seem like they have it together, we're going to try to figure out the next steps. Fry and the president are still arguing like children. We don't want the government to shut down and then see people arguing on X. That is not acceptable, once again, 1 month after the last shutdown just ended.
Soon enough, Trump will be negotiating, I guess, with Amy Klobuchar, who has decided to run for governor after all.
And I think that's a good move for her.
Yeah, I guess it's a good move for her. I guess you wield, because I was wondering, like, why would she want to do that job? But I guess you get to do actual things, whereas in the Senate, in the minority, you just... I don't know, you just go on TV.
The spotlight is on...
Although I thought maybe she was in line for a higher up leadership role in the Senate eventually.
We know that she wanted to be president. That didn't really work out, but her ambitions have always been to be on a national stage.
Vice president, maybe.
Maybe, and her ambitions have always been on a national stage. And so I think the fact that Minnesota and Minneapolis is in the spotlight in the way that it is, she has an opportunity to say the same way, and we're going to talk about Josh Shapiro in a little bit, I can distance myself from the last person in this position, but I can also lead it a different way. And she can be that perhaps moderate Democratic voice that's also saying, yeah, fraud's not acceptable. Anybody who commits it should be arrested. And no perspective
I don't know that
about
she's that moderate, but
I think that you have to acknowledge how much fraud happened in the state. You can't dismiss it just because you don't like the YouTube journalist that went there. Whether you believe him or not, there's other accounts that have been fully proven of the fraud. And so I think she needs to address these things and also hopefully get in the conversation now about what immigration enforcement looks like in her state. That's this is a big job to take on it while the spotlight is on Minnesota, but I think that she can do it. And I think that she has a level head.
I don't know about any of that, but I find her less grating and obnoxious than I find Tim Walz. So
you cannot find Tim Walz any more obnoxious than you find our president. You can't. That's not possible. No, that's impossible. If you talk about levels of obnoxious, it's just
I have Tim Walz derangement syndrome. Guilty as charged.
You must.
I cannot stand him. Yeah, nice. It's actually that's a rebuttal to anyone out there who thinks I've been accused of this, that I always dislike the female political people more than males. I've been accused of this.
Oh.
Here's a clear case where I prefer Amy Klobuchar to Tim Walz.
You're not allowed to say anything about any women candidates. You're not allowed to say.
I'm not allowed to say anything.
You're not allowed to say anything.
Shut.
Yes.
I'll stay in the kitchen. Next up, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro is criticizing what he feels was a lack of action from the Biden administration. Very interesting soundbite. We'll watch that next.